We have 7,500 new students that want to enter our system next year, and through this action of the Board of Governors today, we're providing 50% of the funding necessary to underwrite their presence.
The tuition decision is finally in, and some UNC students aren't happy about it.
A visit by Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas sparks controversy on the UNC campus.
The Children's Hospital promises top-notch care, but could smarter spending have saved patients and taxpayers a chunk of change?
Stay tuned for those stories and more.
Carolina Week starts now.
From the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is Carolina Week.
Good evening, I'm Brigida Mack.
And I'm Tim Nelson. Thanks for joining us for the March 6th edition of Carolina Week. Our top story tonight, tuition. It's going up.
And it's no surprise that the Board of Governors voted Wednesday to increase tuition for the fall semester. Aaron Dupois joins us in the studio with more. Aaron?
Well, Brigida, UNC students probably aren't happy about how much they'll be paying next year. The Board of Governors voted yes on two increases. First, they approved a system-wide increase. The across-the-board increase will be 8% for North Carolina residents and 12% for out-of-staters. Many here at Carolina didn't favor that large system increase because a lot of the money raised at Chapel Hill would be funneled to other campuses.
Aaron, what became of those campus-initiated proposals?
Well, last month, the Board of Trustees voted to increase UNC-Chapel Hill's tuition $400. Now the BOG has voted to grant Chapel Hill a $300 increase, $100 less than the BOT wanted. If the legislature approves both increases, next year the average in-state student at Carolina taking a full load will pay $393 more for school.
Thanks, Aaron.
Well, no one fought harder to have the student's voice heard during the tuition debate than Student Body President Justin Young. And straight from the Board of Governors meeting, he joins us now. Justin, thanks so much for being here.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Justin, first of all, what is your reaction to all of this stuff?
Well, I have to admit that the decision that went down today is kind of shocking. I never realized that it was going to be as much as it was. So it's a huge increase, and it definitely makes a huge impact on the students.
Justin, part of this tuition increase will go to offset costs at smaller schools in the UNC system, smaller than Carolina. How will this hurt Carolina financially?
Well, I think one of the things that we have to realize is that, as being a part of the UNC system, there are responsibilities that we have to, dish out and dole out to other respective schools. But as it stands now, the way that the 12% and the 8% across the board will be distributed, about $9 million will be generated in Chapel Hill, and about 5.8 of that, the majority of it, will be dished out to other universities. And I think that makes a very, very huge impact on, although it makes an impact on those other campuses, it makes it a bit larger impact on the loss that will take place on our campus.
Certainly does. Another thing, Justin, Carolina has always prided itself on being the university of the people. How does this increase affect UNC's accessibility to prospective students?
Well, I think it changes what kind of people this university is for. We've seen over the past 2 years that the amount of applications from the lower income counties and lower income high schools has decreased nearly 20%. So this definitely sends a terrible message to them saying, this isn't a place that's affordable for you anymore. The arguments about financial aid can last but so long, but we're sending a strong message, I think, and a firm message that UNC is not as affordable as it used to be.
Quick question for you, Justin, and answer it quickly if you would. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think the next step is definitely focusing on the General Assembly and lobbying our legislators to make sure that they reaffirm their commitment to higher education. They need to have the political courage to stand out and help this state out of this budget crisis. It's really important that the students go together to make that voice heard and make sure that they communicate that to them effectively.
Justin Young live in the studio. Thanks so much for joining us.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, Justin's term as SPP ends in early April. He told me before that interview that he'll continue working to make the student voice heard louder regarding tuition and other issues right until his final day in office.
Students will now have money to fight future tuition increases. The Board of Governors also approved the $1 increase in student fees proposed by the Association of Student Government. This will raise the ASG budget by more than $150,000. ASG's James Holton says the money will allow for adequate representation of all 16 UNC campuses at association functions.
The approval allows all students to have an equal opportunity to serve in the association. Unfortunately, a lot of times leadership comes from Carolina State simply because those students can financially afford to stay in Raleigh.
This is the first system-wide student fee increase ever approved by the Board of Governors.
Many campus groups are upset after Student Congress cut their funding for next year. Congress says the reason for the cuts is there wasn't enough money to meet the group's requests. Congress hopes to solve this problem by increasing student activity fees. Fees are currently $11.50 for undergraduates and $9.50 for graduate students. The new proposed fee is $16.50 for all students. Finance Committee Chairman Tony Larson says that money would help go toward funding student groups.
The fee has not been increased by a significant amount for student groups since 1984. So for 17 years, student groups have been doing activities on this campus and providing things for students on this campus for the same amount of money.
Students can vote on an increase in a referendum on April 2nd.
Well, the new Children's Hospital boasts a state-of-the-art patient care facility. They seem to think of everything but the cost. Carolina Week's Michelle Muscatello joins us in the studio to tell us more. Michelle?
The new North Carolina Children's Hospital is $28 million over budget. We wondered how that happened, particularly in light of this comment made by a hospital official.
I came almost 2 years ago to this place and found that there were things that they had thought about doing. I said, wow, let's get it. Let's buy this. Let's buy that. So I spent money like a drunken sailor.
That was a comment made during a hospital tour by Carolyn Vial, the hospital director of Children's Services. The hospital's response?
I don't think anyone would agree that we spent money like a drunken sailor.
A hospital spokesman describes it as an unfortunate choice of words and says Vial now regrets it. But as spending decisions were made, the hospital put a lot of effort into creating what officials there call a patient and family-friendly place.
I don't think you're going to find very many other hospitals out there that have done this to the extent we have.
Every patient room also has a TV and VCR. Yes, we got in a big debate, VCR versus DVD, when we were making the purchase. We went VCR, may have been a big mistake.
Why did you go VCR?
What did that cost? Carolina Week asked, but hospital administrators didn't give us any information. They also kept the file closed on the cost of other amenities they described as patient-friendly. They only told us some of the artwork, like this 2-story high sculpture, was donated. In an attempt to add up some of the costs, Carolina Week went to the Best Buy website. A large-size TV at retail price costs about $400, and basic VCRs run about $70. At those costs, putting a TV and a VCR in each of the 146 rooms and some other places would cost you at least $70,000. In addition, nurses and doctors have both pagers and wireless phones. The hospital waiting areas have stargazing lights that change colors. There's unusual furniture throughout and lots of unique architectural details. But Carolina Week has been unable to get any information about the costs involved. The key questions are, how necessary are some of these things? How much did they cost? And going back to our original question, why is the project $28 million over budget? Carolina Week has asked repeatedly for a response from hospital administrators, but CEO Eric Munson and other officials have been unable or unwilling to comment. We also called 13 members of the UNC Healthcare Board of Directors and were unable to get an interview with any of them. And as of our taping late Wednesday afternoon, the hospital had not responded to a faxed list of questions about the cost of amenities and what the Raleigh News and Observer called slack oversight of spending.
Thanks, Michelle. Well, UNC-Chapel Hill public safety officials are still searching for answers after a bomb scare Tuesday night. Police searched several campus buildings after receiving an anonymous letter stating there was a bomb somewhere on campus. UNC Chief of Police Derek Porch says there was no need for a full-scale evacuation.
There's a difference between
an anonymous threat, which is what we were dealing with last night and what we're dealing with now in an investigation, and finding something that appears to be threatening to the university community. One is handled one way, the other is handled a totally different way, and we haven't found anything yet.
Chief Porch also said that the investigation is ongoing and that they're following several leads.
Controversial Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's visit to UNC-Chapel Hill School of Law on Wednesday sparked protest by some faculty and the Black Law Students Association.
Oh, that's silly. I don't deal with that stuff. It's time for, I mean, if you're at a law school and you have exchange, where would you go to exchange ideas but a university? You protest ideas? I mean, why not burn books? I think we're against it. That's silly.
But Justice Thomas's reaction isn't shared by those wearing black clothes and passing out black ribbons.
I see several law students walking by that are dressed in black, so I think it's going pretty well.
BALSA President Kim Cogdell helped organize the protest. She says Thomas's decisions are tearing down programs that helped him get where he is today. Most of BALSA's approximately 60 members took part in the protest.
We come together to silently protest. We believe in the freedom of speech, and so, we want people to be able to hear what he has to say if they want to.
Hopefully have an exchange with him.
One group that has no interest in having an exchange is the 5 African American members of the law school faculty. They sent a letter to their colleagues explaining they would not participate in Thomas's visit, stating he not only engages in acts that harm other African Americans like himself, but also gives aid, comfort, and racial legitimacy to acts and doctrines of others that harm African Americans unlike himself. How do you react to the fact that the black law professors here have said that you engage in acts that harm African Americans like yourself?
Oh, that's silly. Come on.
None of those faculty members would comment, but some students think Thomas's visit and the controversy it created is a good thing.
The whole part of law school is learning about, different views and different sides and being able to accept those views.
Thomas spoke to 2 classes, had lunch with students and faculty, and participated in a question and answer session.
Well, spring break is in the air, and some students are getting ready to hit the skies.
We'll tell you what you should prepare for when Carolina Week continues.
Let's talk about dying. Everybody's got to do it, but nobody wants to talk about it. So talking about organ donation is even harder, especially with your family. Because to talk about that, you got to admit you're gonna die, and that's hard. Maybe people think if they don't talk about it, it won't happen. You know what? That's exactly what happens with organ donation. If you don't talk to your family about it, it won't happen. Yeah, it's kind of creepy, maybe weird, but you get to give the biggest gift in the whole world, life. So this is what I think. Organ donation is not about dying. It's about living. Talk to your family about living. Talk to your family about donating life.
A successful new revenue in South Carolina has North Carolina lawmakers looking south of the border, and what they're seeing are visions of green. Carolina Week's Craig Ledford explains.
Congratulations, you're a winner.
The South Carolina Education Lottery is new. It's been around only since January 7th, but it's already brought in more than $138 million for public schools.
Well, I'm not a winner this time, but chances are someone from North Carolina has won at this Circle K on Carowinds Boulevard recently. That's because this store sold more tickets than any other in South Carolina so far, and it's just 1 mile south of the North Carolina border.
Officials estimate that up to 10% of South Carolina lottery revenues come from North Carolinians. That's more than $100 million in the next year. In fact, 24 of the top 25 selling stores are within 9 miles of the border. Lawmakers in Raleigh want to see that money spent here in our state.
I think it's foolish to let this money migrate out of our state to educate other kids when our kids so desperately need the resources.
Buck and Ruth Johnson traveled to this store from their home just north of Charlotte.
16 is
well, down under.
They spent more than $30 on scratch-off tickets, but disagree about whether the Tar Heel State should get a lottery.
I think they're losing a lot of revenue by having people come across the border, both to Virginia and to South Carolina.
There's too many that can't afford it will get trapped into it. Surely we can do our education and highways a better way.
We're not after trying to get people to have a gambling habit. We're after trying to capture the money here for our needs here in North Carolina.
If the bill passes both houses of the legislature, voters could decide its fate in November. In South Carolina, I'm Craig Ledford, Carolina Week.
A lottery bill passed the Senate last year, but never made it through the House. About 60% of North Carolinians now support a lottery.
The Sonia Haynes Stone Memorial Lecture pays tribute to the late Carolina professor by inviting African American women who have contributed to society.
We cry out against these killings.
Actress and activist Alfre Woodard is the latest speaker in the series. Woodard's speech at Memorial Hall Tuesday night included comments about the war on terrorism and a poetry performance. Woodard focused mostly on activism and its importance in society.
It's so exciting to do work that makes a difference in people's lives. And not only does it affect the life of the person that you are directly working with in need or needs somehow some assistance, but it affects your life.
Woodard co-founded the charity organization Artists for a New South Africa with co-actor and friend Danny Glover, and she appeared in many award-winning movies and TV series.
UNC-Chapel Hill's campus is 75% white, so some minorities are trying to raise awareness about their groups. Carolina Week's Regina Willis wanted to find out if it's working.
This looks like a festive dance, but it's also very spiritual for Native Americans. Navajo dancer Dawn Begay wants you to know that.
I think that it's important to acknowledge everybody in your community and learn a little bit about each one of them.
And this looks like a game, but it's also a part of Asian American heritage. Asian Students of America President Linda Kim wants you to know that.
We feel like to fulfill our mission, we also have to reach out to the students on campus.
But many of the students stopping by ASA's pit table were Asian American, and almost everyone at the powwow was Native American. Kim says at functions or on campus, minorities seem to stick together.
Just being in Asian and being a minority myself, I know that people sometimes feel intimidated by the majority.
And whites may avoid ethnic functions because they feel intimidated.
Even though they may be the majority on campus, they may not feel like the majority in a program like that.
Begay says it's important for whites to go anyway.
For so many of us, coming to class, going to the grocery store, we're the minority. And I think it's something that everybody really needs to, at some point in their life experience, to know what it's like to be on the flip side.
The women believe the programs are making some strides.
A lot of students have come up and asked us questions.
If 5 people come, and that's 5 people who haven't had any contact with Native Americans before, haven't ever been to an event like this before, it's a success.
In Chapel Hill, I'm Regina Willis, Carolina Week.
We spoke with a Carolina professor who studies ethnic relationships, and he says it's normal for people not to want to go outside their comfort zones. And the key to breaking down ethnic barriers is forming individual relationships with people of different races.
Students are eagerly awaiting for spring break, but the wait to get out of town may be a little longer this year. RDU spokeswoman Mindy Hamlin says security changes may lead to longer lines. Students who haven't traveled since last spring break will notice more screening of carry-on bags. People not flying must stay in the ticket area and can't go to the gates with travelers. Don't forget your photo ID or passport and arrive at least 2 hours early. Hamlin says the federal takeover of security screening isn't the problem.
As far as the federal government taking over, it has been pretty seamless. Really, passengers won't see anything different. Most of the things are taking place behind the scenes. It was a management change.
For information on parking at RDU, go to carolinaweek.org and just follow the links to this story.
Well, I'm sure everyone is hoping that the warm weather is going to last all the way through spring break.
But Kelly, at least just take us up through the weekend. What's going to happen?
Yes, certainly. The weather is a major factor in many people's spring break plans, so I'll let you know what to expect as we head into this weekend and next week in just a minute. But first, let's go to this week's weather question, which is, in which year did meteorologists begin naming hurricanes after women? Is it in 1901, 1941, 1953, or 1979? We'll have the answer to your weather question and your spring break forecast right after the break.
I think you should wear a tie.
Dad, nobody wears ties to school.
Tie says you're serious. It'll make a good impression. And remember, you're there to study,
to learn, and to make something of myself. I got it.
Almost half of all UNCF students are the first in their family to go to college.
They have some great architecture classes.
Dad, I'm not really interested in architecture.
Well, keep your options open. And remember, no girls until your work is done. And I'd make sure that I got my lunch.
Dad, you're not going. I am.
I know.
Listen, we better get going. Don't want to be late the first day in.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're the first to go, you're going for a lot of people. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Hi, and welcome back to Carolina Week. Well, this warming trend couldn't have come soon enough for the men's crew team, who spent 24 chilly hours rowing out in the pit earlier this week. Don't worry about them, though, as if the rowing didn't keep them warm enough, these heat lamps certainly did. And with the weather just changing all over the place, many of us are looking ahead to spring break and wondering, what is the weather going to be like in the places that you might be heading? Well, here's some expected high temperatures in some really popular spring break destinations. Now, Aspen, Colorado certainly isn't a beachy place to go, as the high is going to be 34 degrees, but skiing conditions should be excellent out west. If you're headed down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you can expect a high around 63 degrees toward the middle of next week. And Panama City, Florida, it should be around 72. Miami, Florida should be about 79. And Cancun, Mexico looks like your warmest bet at 82 degrees, and pretty humid conditions in all these warm places. Well, if you're staying in Chapel Hill for the break, let's take a look at some local forecast, and we'll start off by looking at the satellite map. You can see much of the southeast is under a region of clear conditions, excuse me, but there is some cloud cover out to our west, and that is indicative of a front that's going to start getting organized and really cause a change to our weekend weather pattern. Let's take a look at that forecast map, and we can see this front is indeed getting more organized, and this should start to impact our weather as we head into Saturday evening and Sunday morning. So what does that mean for your Carolina Week 4-day forecast? Well, on Friday, you can expect partly cloudy skies, a high of 69, the low of 44. On Saturday, mostly cloudy once again, a high of 68 and 50. Sunday, the showers start to roll in, a high of 58 and a low of 45. And on Monday, things should clear on out here in Chapel Hill, if that's where you'll be for spring break, with a high of 58 and a low of about 35. Well, if you're going to be heading down to some of the North Carolina beaches, the beach forecast around here will be 74 degrees and mostly sunny skies, cooling off a bit on Sunday. And if the mountains are in your spring break plans instead, you can expect a high of 62 on Saturday, 55 on Sunday. And if you're heading out to the mountains to do a bit of skiing for spring break, things don't look so bad. Appalachian has 7 trails open, Cataloochee has 5, Ski Beach with 13, and Sugar Mountain has 19 trails open. So everything's looking pretty good as we head into spring break. But before we head off to sports, you want to take a guess at what year we started naming hurricanes after women?
I'm going to say 1953.
It is actually. That's exactly right. It was 1953.
Thanks a lot, Kelly.
Sure.
Well, Ben, if it wasn't enough twice this season, the Heels get Duke one more time on Friday.
Could third time be the charm?
Well, luck might be the only way we win that one. But first, as we go to break, the Carolina baseball team blew out Old Dominion 23-3 this weekend. Up in Virginia, the Heels totaled a season-high 21 hits, including 4 hits and 6 runs batted in by Russ Adams, and sophomore Ron Braun also had 4 hits, one of them being a grand slam. The Heels may need some of those runs this weekend when they travel up to Auburn. Carolina Week Sports returns after this.
Hey Mark, where are you going with your piggy bank? I'm going to give my allowance to the Interfaith Council. Why? Mom says they help people, and they need our help too.
The Interfaith Council helps adults and children through job training, family support, and education. They can't survive without community support. Every donation counts.
I want to help too.
Call the Interfaith Council at 929-6380.
Bye.
You little rascal.
Scientists have proven that his brain will develop better when you read, sing, and talk to him in full sentences from the day he is born.
What do you want, honey?
Let him bring out the baby in you, but you need to bring out his mind. An early start. Now that's smart.
Welcome back to Carolina Week Sports. For the second time in 3 years, the Duke and Carolina women's basketball teams challenged each other in the ACC Finals. The Heels would come out charged. Crystal Baptist would help UNC build an early 8-point lead, but Monique Curry had 20 first-half points to pull Duke within 1 at halftime. In the second half, Nikki Teasley's hot hand puts UNC up 12. That's when Curry and Elena Beard fueled the Devils' comeback. Coretta Brown keeps it close, but Duke holds on for the 87-80 ACC championship win. Teasley says despite the loss, Carolina can still do damage in the NCAA tournament.
We're just going to take this and learn from it. No, our season is not over. A lot of people, their seasons are over, but it's not over for us. We're going to go home and learn from this and move on. That goes on, so.
Miraculously, Carolina isn't part of this weekend's play-in game at the ACC tournament. The Heels' reward, they get to play Duke again on Friday. Tar Heel fans should be excited that this is going to be the last time they're ever going to see Jason Williams in a Duke uniform. It'll also be the last time they'll see Matt Christensen. Don't worry, Matt, a lot of people go to college for 7 years. Unfortunately, the Heels still have to play Jason Williams one more time. He dropped in 37 points Sunday and forced many of Carolina's 25 turnovers. That's something the Heels are going to have to cut out if they hope to pull off the miracle. That and score more points. Simple enough, right? But hey, Jason Capel's excited about another chance to play the Devils.
It's Duke. It's a tough game. We have nothing to lose. I mean, no, y'all don't expect us to win, so go out there and play loose. Hopefully, anything can happen. We can pull a miracle or something.
The Carolina Wrestlers are gearing up for their ACC tournament this Saturday in Raleigh. Coach Bill Lamb's squad finished the regular season tied for first place with NC State with a 14-5 record. Following the ACC Mat Jam, the Heels will look toward the NCAA tournament. And while no one's in a rush to give the men's basketball team any postseason awards, Jason Capel did earn third-team All-ACC honors, and Jawad Williams did get first-team All-ACC freshman.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Quick sports this week. Well, for many students on spring break, it's not what you do, it's making sure you look good doing it, unlike that.
We'll take a look at some hot new looks for spring break when Carolina Week returns.
If you have a story idea, contact Carolina Week at 843-8292. You can also visit us online at carolinaweek.org. If you have questions about this program, write Carolina Week at Campus Box 3365, UNC-CH, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, 27599.
With spring break next week, many students are having trouble knowing what to pack. Carolina Week's Ashlyn Gorish shows us the new trends for this season.
Peasant, white, distressed, floral. What to buy for spring can be as hard as picking where to go during break. Modern Times owner Lisa Markison shows us what styles are hot this spring.
Distressed leather, distressed denim, distressed, even well-washed floral fabrics.
But without shoes, no outfit can be complete. Shoes at the Square owner Ellen Freed says wedges and flowers are the trends for shoes this season.
They look good, but they're also comfortable, and you can wear probably a higher heel than you otherwise would if you've got it on a wedge, especially if it has a little platform on it like this, so that it looks like a much higher heel than what it feels like.
We have the wedge shoes, the floral dress, and even the distressed jeans. But what if we're on a budget? What's the one must-have this spring season?
Bohemian blouse with embroidery.
that's what you need. And you can get it with a long flowing sleeve, or you can get it short sleeve, you can get it in a tank style.
So for this spring, think sheer peasant or bohemian tops, cotton dresses, wedge shoes, and anything with flowers. Unless you're a guy. In Chapel Hill, I'm Ashlyn Gorse, Carolina Week.
Well, Tim, it's too bad I won't be around next week to see you in that floral dress.
Yes, it is. And that does it for this edition of Carolina Week.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to watch in 2 weeks when we return after spring vacation.
Until then, have a good night and a good week.
Good night.